So after nearly a month of Alan Skinner's study streak, we are still continuing with it with the few remedies that are remaining, more than 50 remedies. We come to lysinum today. In Alan's keynotes, there is a very short synopsis of this remedy, but if we go in other books, it has been elaborately mentioned. Especially the mental generals and the mind aspect is very less explained, I would say only a few lines, but it has a lot of action on the mind because it affects the mind and the nervous system profoundly. But the first thing what we see in Allen's keynotes for lysinum, which is mentioned as complaints resulting from abnormal sexual desire, which causes all the problems. If it is from abnormal sexual desire, it is lysinum. If it is from abstinence, it is conam. But this is the picture which we will see in adults or after the puberty age. In children where this remedy needs to be prescribed, there will be lot of mental symptoms, lot of mind symptoms which need to be thought of, and they are barely present here. Maybe at other time when we will come to this remedy, when we are discussing the other books, when I will be discussing the other remedies, other materia medicas, and also comparative materia medica which I plan to do in future. Maybe we'll get a better idea of this remedy. So next what we see mentioned in Allen's for lysinum is lysophobia, which is fear of becoming mad. There is mental emotion or mortifying news which always make him worse, and that's the end of it. So barely it begins and it ends the mind symptoms, which is very less from a prescriptive point of view. But the reason I took up this remedy today was because couple of days back we learned about apis, cantharis, and those remedies that act on the urinary system, and I had also told you that apis and some class of remedies can be indicated for children who have ADHD or hyperactive in nature. Similarly, the remedies which follow that line of thought for prescriptive pointers in the clinic, lysinum, tarentul, and theridion are those class of remedies which you will need to employ in cases where there is lot of hyperactivity in children, lot of restlessness in children. They go out of control and they cannot be kept in check. But in Allen's keynote, you will not find this true picture. Maybe at some other time, I will take up this entire group of hyperactive remedies and bring out some valuable video on it. So as of now, we'll proceed with Allen's keynotes, and we have the sight or sound of running water or pouring water aggravates all the complaints. Though, so you see that the similar picture is there in a patient who has been bitten by a rabid dog, and there is not much more available in the Allen's keynotes apart from all these symptoms, which again further tell you about bluish discoloration of wounds, which is also seen in the cases, cannot bear the heat of sun, again the cases glonoine, gelsemium, natramure. The only peculiar factor that you see is that there is saliva which is tough, ropey, viscid and frothy in the mouth and the throat, and there is constant spitting. The other remedy given is hydrostasis. So, there will be a class of children who will develop this habit. Maybe they'll pick it up from school, they'll pick it up from some friend, or they'll pick it up from some colleague in their in the apartment where they live. But there will be this kind of a persistent, habit a bad habit of spitting all the time. From this, you will get an entry into the case, and this child may definitely be hyperactive, or he may be out of control, not listening to parents. Always, if anyone is talking or anyone is conversing, he will be mad, he will be snappish, he will be impatient. And if you go and read the other books, for example, Boger, which I have extensively read multiple times, it mentions very clearly that it is a very hypersensitive remedy, and also there is sensitiveness which is out of control. Next we have is headache, which is mentioned in Lysinum in Allen's keynotes. Headache from bites of dogs, whether rabid or not, chronic headaches from mental emotions or exertion, and aggravated by noise of water or bright light. So there are times when in clinics the parents of the children will tell you that the child does not like to get bath or take bath or go in cold water or go in water also. What is the reaction of the child? From that we can understand whether lysinum needs to be prescribed or it will require sulfur or maybe a chili remedy. So the reaction or the response of the child to the cold water or to the water, in other words, would probably give you an explanation. So your job is to not stop where the symptom ends from the patient. The place where the symptom ends, the sentence what the patient says, where he ends, from there your interrogation should begin, and that is what it should be like in every case and not in certain cases only. Next we have is sore throat, but with the sore throat there is a constant desire to swallow. There is a class of medicines which will always have this. Laccan was one of them, Merck salt was one of them, and lysinum is here in front of you. Then we have difficulty in swallowing, even spasm of esophagus from swallowing liquids, gagging when swallowing water. So there is a kind of a peristaltic reaction of the esophagus which brings the water out again. It does not take it inside, and this can be a valuable pointer if there are gagging episodes or retching episodes in the child while he or she drinks waters. Last we have about the nervous system, which is convulsions from a dazzling light or reflected light from water or from mirror. We saw this very clearly in stramonium. In fact, I had told you that belladonna, hyoscyamus and stramonium can be indicated for those children who are very hyperactive, out of control, restless, make noise, but they will serve as an acute or subacute case. Lysinum will probably go deeper and may be indicated for a chronic state which may be present in the child. There will be convulsions even from thinking of fluids, and there will be convulsions from slightest touch or current of air. So whenever in a remedy, if there is a mention of sensitive or hypersensitive or oversensitiveness, you have to understand that that sensitivity runs throughout the remedy in all the spheres. It can be physical, it can be mental, it can be emotional, it can be on the different parts of the body, it can be whole. So once you understand that, your job to understand the patient and his symptoms becomes easier, and that is what lysinum is all about. It's a hyperactive and hypersensitive remedy which is probably less explained in Allen's keynotes, but nevertheless whatever pointers are mentioned, they will be your entry points in many of the cases when they land up in your clinic. So next we have another similar remedy, which is tarantula. There are actually two compounds of remedies of tarantula which we see in homeopathy, but only one is mentioned over here. There is a mention of tarantula hispania, which acts on the nervous system, it acts on the spine and those areas, whereas the tarantula cubensis acts on the cellular tissue and acts more on the skin. So here we have tarantula hispania, which is a Spanish spider. The patient or anyone who needs tarantula is restless, could not keep quiet in any position, and he wants to keep in motion all the time. although walking aggravates his problems, he needs to keep in motion. This is reverse of Ruta and Rustox. But this is explained from the physical perspective, this comparison. For understanding this remedy from the mental perspective, for the restlessness, you need to go deeper and understand the remedy from different perspectives. So every author will give you one way of thinking, and it is upon the reader to understand how it will be presented in the clinics. It's theoretical and then practical, which where the practical will have multiple avenues and entry points. So this restlessness could probably mean that the patient is actually restless, but there won't be any pain or walking which aggravates the symptoms. So in this way you will be able to understand why and how the symptoms are mentioned in the materia medicas. Next we have about headache in tarantula, which is intense as if thousands of needles were pricking the brain. Patients would describe you needle sensations very often, or at times maybe 50% out of the 100% of patients, or it's about sensations. Not all patients will be able to describe sensations. So there will be a class of patients, 10, 20, 30, 40%, maybe up till 50% who will explain you the sensations. But something that is pricking deep into the brain, this will be very rarely observed, and this will be a deeper sensation if it is prolonged for a long time, if the disease is existing for a long time. Then you have headache, which is neuralgic. So you can see this connection between thousands of needles in one sentence and the other sentence which comes as neuralgic for the same complaint, which is headache. This should make you think that there is a kind of a neuralgic headache which is present in tarantula rather than more of a spasmodic headache, and this can be taken as a general view for all the complaints of tarantula, which will be neuralgic in nature rather than spasmodic, or locally the muscles are affected. So the complaints of tarantula are more related to the nervous system rather than just a one organ or one part. So you have this headache which is neuralgic, which is aggravated by noise, touch, strong light, and better by rubbing head against the pillow. It is adapted to highly nervous organisms, especially choric affections where the whole body or the right arm and left leg are affected. And similar picture we see in agaricus, which actually has the opposite sections, which is left arm and right leg. There is a constant movement. Ellen mentions that there is constant movement of legs, arms, trunk with inability to do anything, twitching and jerking of muscles. So those cases where nervous system is the seat of affection, but the disease is manifested on the local parts, in the peripheral parts. There will be twitching of local parts, parts locally which are affected. Think of tarantula. The nervous origin is very important, otherwise you will be misled into prescribing tarantula and maybe the case may go wrong. Again, here you have hyperesthesia, least excitement, irritates, followed by languid sadness, extreme, which is extreme actually, and of the tip of the fingers especially. Then you have slightest touch of the spine provokes the spasmodic pain in the chest and the cardiac region. So similar sensitive spine we also see. Boger mentions that it is belladonna which also has similar sensitive spine, but in many books you will also find out that chininum sulf has this kind of sensitivity, but the sphere of action of tarantula and chininum sulf is way different. Both of them have periodicity, but here it is more of a nervous origin which you will find, whereas there you will find something else. Next you have that at every menstrual nisus the throat, mouth, tongue intolerably dry, especially when sleepy. So the other remedy is nux moscata. And if you have someone who is hyperactive with this symptom of dryness of tongue or mouth during menses, during menses, think of tarantula. If there is dullness, think of nux moscata. Sexual excitement extreme even to mania, spasms of uterus, pruritus vulvae become intolerable. These remedies which have action on the genital region or in and around the genital region, they should be thought very strongly in cases of jock itch or tinea cruris of those organs or those areas, because they have, number one is action of that part, and number two is that if the pathology looks like there is hypersensitivity, then you can think of these remedies. Next you have is abscesses, boils, phelons, affected parts of a bluish color, and there is atrocious burning pain, the agony of a phelon. So it's something like some part is affected locally at the extreme end of the body, but the pain radiates from that part to the entire limb through the nerves. That is the affection of tarantula in the words that he mentions. Agony of a phelon compels the patient to walk the floor for nights. So there will be kind of a infection or suppurative process which will go for a long time, and the patient will not be uh, good to sleep, and he will get more restless at night because of the pain. Then you have malignant ulcers, carbuncle, anthrax, and gangrene. So both the remedies of tarantula hispania or cubensis can be indicated for gangrene or uh, conditions which are malignant or destructive in nature. When you have such pathologies, you should directly start thinking of those remedies which are malignant in nature, destructive in nature. Aggravation, we come to the modalities where aggravation of tarantula is from motion, from contact, from touch of affected parts, noise and change of weather. Amelioration is by rubbing that part, music and open air. So a lot of homeopaths have been prescribing tarantula in children or in cases where there is desire for rhythm and etc. But in some cases you will get these physical pointers which we discussed in Ireland today, and you will be able to learn to prescribe this remedy based upon these. So going further, there was one line which I have emphasized throughout the remedy, and that is that the termini of the nerves become so irritated and sensitive that some kind of friction was necessary to obtain relief. There is a hypersensitivity and hyperesthesia, and if it is gently rubbed, it will feel better for the patient. So you will see that the children who are hyperactive, hypersensitive, they may need rubbing before night to sleep, or they would require this kind of rubbing when they are hyperactive, and to calm them down the parents have resorted to these techniques. That is your indication for prescribing tarantula. You see there is similarity for tarantula with the remedies Apis, Crotalus horridus, Lachesis, Platinum, Mygale, Naja and Theridion. So the next remedy that we come to is theridion, which is just close by tarantula and very much similar because it is also one of the spider remedies. One of the interesting things is that it has time passes too quickly, and we see that there is a lot of sensitivity in this remedy as well. So if it is time passes too slowly, we see the remedies argentum nitricum, cannabis indica and nux moschata. If it is too quickly, it is cocculus, it is theridion. So we have hypersensitivity, which I spoke about, and the sensitivity is so bad that there is every sound which seems to penetrate through the whole body and causes nausea and vertigo. So deep the sound goes, so deep its affections. Not only this, but it also has its effects on the sensorium. The vertigo is there on closing the eyes, and from any least noise again, or it is oral or labyrinthine. So if you go to ENT doctors, you will see these kind of patients, and every intern should try to go to ENT doctors at least for a couple of months. After that it will get pretty boring, but this will give you an idea of what kind of vertigo they see, and they have no treatment for it, they have no medicine for it. patients languish for years without any treatment and they overcome the disease by self-help only. In those cases, theridion can be thought. If the vertigo is from closing the eyes, it's very peculiar. You may check the patient. There is a test you do by making the patient stand and see where he sways. In those cases, you can think of theridion. If it is as soon as he opens the eyes, it is lyss and thuja. If it is on looking upwards, it is pulsatilla and silica. Then you have headache, which is as soon as it begins to move, of a dull pressure behind the eyes, deep in the brain, and lying down, aggravated by lying down, like the remedy lyss, and very much aggravated from others who are walking around him on the floor because he seems to see the motions of the legs by watching those legs, or even if he moves his head to see anything else, it would cause him headache. So you can understand this sensitivity is so bad, and maybe in certain class of cases it would be required to give this medicine. Okay, and next we have toothache, which is also again penetrating pain from any noise which is external. Chronic nasal catarrh, discharge thick, yellow, greenish, offensive, like the remedies pulsatilla thuja. Nausea from least motion, especially on closing the eyes from fast riding in the carriage. Seasickness of nervous women, they close their eyes to get rid of the motion of the vessel and grow deathly sick. So you see that all the remedies which have affections on the vertigo or they act for vertigo cases, they will definitely and 110% have action on the GIT, which is component which is nausea also. And you will have certain patients who will have this combination of symptoms. In those cases, you can think of theridion and those remedies, like the other remedy we know very well is copulus. So theridion can be thought of as a remedy for motion sickness. You will need to investigate if they need to close their eyes when the vehicle is moving to feel better, but still there is a sensation of vertigo which they keep on feeling. Nausea will also get aggravated. That is the sign of theridion for you to prescribe. So they'll close their eyes, but they'll also get aggravated. This is in a very contradictory phase which we see. Then you have violent stitches in the upper left chest below the scapula extending to the neck. The other remedies mentioned are apis, Myritus communis, and Pix liquida and sulfur. There is great sensitiveness between the vertigo, sits sideways in the chair to avoid the pressure of the spine. The other remedy mentioned in the brackets are chininum sulf. So I already discussed in the earlier lectures about how the patient comes and talks to you, or how is his demeanor. So demeanor means that how is his conduct when he is in front of you, how he behaves, how he sits, how laid back he is, how much space he is occupying. All these things also guide you to a remedy if you know how to identify them. Alan in his keynotes has given a lot of data. You should know how to pick up from and where to pick up from. There are other books also which have these nitty-gritty things, and your remedy will be confirmed 50% by observation only rather than by other things in the case. So again, the back is sensitive in theridion. It is aggravated by least noise and least movement of placement of foot on the floor. In the bones there is a lot of pain as if it is broken, which seems to be like arnica, but here it is even more worse. There is a lot of sensitivity from the skin to the bone, extreme sensitivity everywhere. And you see that there is extreme sensitivity of puberty during pregnancy and climatic years. And then in necrosis of bones, it will act so well. I would say that there are two remedies which act really good on necrosis of bones. Theridion is one and phosphoric acid is the other. They both act, but there needs to be kind of a sensitivity which we see in theridion. If it is there in patient, we can prescribe. If there is lot of struggle which is there in the life of patient or with the disease, the body struggle with the disease, we can think of phosphoric acid. And in tuberculosis, especially some variety which Ellen mentions, Thysis florida, if it is given in early stages, it is curable. Sadly, homeopaths don't get Thysis cases anymore. All these cases are directly reported to the government OPDs, or even if you get, you need to be very sensitive, because if they slip by for a week or two, by getting worse, they will end up taking the anti-tubercular treatment, which is going to take away 9 months or a year of patient from you. In the relationship, you see theridion mentioned for follows well after calcarea carb and lycopodium. So this remedy is very much helpful in cases where calcarea carb seems to be indicated and you have given calcarea carb, but some complaints, especially the deeper pathologies of the bones or something which is more malignant and there is a lot of sensitivity, does not get covered with those remedies, theridion will probably help you cure. So that brings us to the end of today's session, and there were 3 remedies discussed: lycinum, tarentula and theridion. And we see again tomorrow the next few remedies. If anyone wishes to join the community or WhatsApp community which we have created, there will be case taking discussions and homeopathic cases discussions and about the workshops which I keep on conducting in future, etc. etc. You can join the community, and not all the images that you see posted on the handles, on the social media handles, are posted. uh, Not all the images are posted here, because there needs to be some content which some serious people need to follow, and that is available only in my WhatsApp community. So drop a message to join and you may probably be given the access. So that's all for the moment, and we see tomorrow again in the evening 5:15. Look out for the notification and you will be led further.